Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A Photographic Life and an episode of Seesaw with Fiona Hayes, in which every month Fiona brings back reports from the photographic exhibitions that she's seen. This month it's something different. Well, Fee, hello, welcome to Seesaw and welcome back to A Photographic Life.
Thank you very much, Grant. It is very, very nice to be here again.
Great. And we're going to do something slightly different this month. And so I'm just going to hand it over to you to kick us off.
All right, great. We are doing something a little bit different. We are traveling. It's spring, and despite the sort of various visa problems people may be having, people do want to get away. And so, for this episode, I want to talk about a new photography magazine in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands.
A
And
museum, not a magazine.
it is a museum.
You said it was a magazine. You're obsessed with magazines.
Sorry, one track mind. It is a museum. It is called
Okay,
the Photo Museum Netherlands. Yeah, you can take the girl out of editorial, but you can't take editorial out of the girl's brain. Um,
absolutely.
this gallery, this museum, opened in February, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I don't know about you. I had never been there before.
No, me neither.
I have been to Amsterdam several times, and various other bits of the country, but I've never been to Rotterdam. And apparently there has been a photography gallery museum in Rotterdam for some time, but this, as I say, is brand new. It opened in February, and I was kind of beguiled by a review in the architecture section of the Financial Times that said there may be no finer place to see photography than Rotterdam's Photo Museum. So better check it out on behalf of the listeners.
Can I just
So
ask you, how did you get there? Did you get the train?
I got the Eurostar, exactly. And it's very straightforward. It's the Amsterdam train. So if you're going from King's Cross, you get King's Cross across to Lille, and then it goes through Brussels, and then it goes to Rotterdam and carries on to Amsterdam. So it's a bit under 3 hours.
Mhm.
It's a bit further than Paris, but it's totally straightforward. Absolutely lovely, really nice journey. Yeah, and it went absolutely fine. I do recommend it. And Rotterdam itself, as I say, having never been there before, it's a dense city, and it's on the river. It's a port. It's been redeveloped as a city because it was carpet bombed by the Nazis in 1940. And so over decades, it's been redeveloped and redeveloped. And the photo museum is in Rijnhaven. I got now. Please, no Dutch listeners criticize my Dutch pronunciation because it'll just get worse, I'm afraid. But Rijnhaven is an area of the city that is currently being redeveloped. It's just south of the river, on the river. It's a former dockside industrial area. And this particular building is called the Santos Building, and it's a former coffee warehouse. And from when Rotterdam did a lot of trade with Santos in Brazil. And it really is a bit of a building site still around there. So I recommend, well, what I did was I got the Eurostar over, arrived on Tuesday night, checked into a hotel very centrally. There's tons of nice central hotels. It's very, very easy to get around Rotterdam. And then I booked my ticket for sort of 11:30 the next morning. The museum opens about 11. And I ended up spending 4 hours there, and I could easily have spent twice as long, but it was a beautiful day, and I need to see some other things. It's very easy to get to from the city. You can walk from the center of town down to the museum in half an hour. As I say, it's a building site around there, so it's not the most delightful of walks, but you do walk over the Erasmus Bridge, which is one of the great sights of that part of the world and stuff. And so what can I tell you? Well, I have to say a little more about the architecture because it makes such a difference to actually see photography in a new space that is purely designed to house photography and to show it off in a spectacular, really, really moving kind of way. So the Santos building is, I think it's 7 floors, and the interior of it has been sliced open. So you have a steel staircase that goes from the ground floor all the way up. There's a very nice restaurant on I think the 6th floor, which I didn't try, but there's a lovely coffee shop on the ground floor. There is a basement which has a dark room in it. There's a coffee shop on the ground floor. There's also a very, very good library, and shops and so on. So it's lovely as an experience just to kind of go there, spend some time. It's really, really enjoyable. In terms of the work, well, the collection they have 6.5 million items, which is one of the world's largest national photographic collections, apparently. They're almost all Dutch. So you're not going to go and see, a great sort of scope of world photography, but you're going to learn a lot about Dutch photography in the time there. And frankly, I thought that was great. I thought that was really, really worked very, very well. So any questions? Yes, shall I just keep going?
I'm just intrigued by the. I feel as if you've taken me on a. We've turned into a travelogue. I suppose really what I was just thinking. I was just taking what you were saying, and one of the things that we do talk about each month when we do talk about photographic exhibitions is the hanging, the presentation, the space, because we always feel that's very important as to what makes a successful exhibition. So when you said that this was a purpose built for photography rather than, for example, I don't know, like a big museum or gallery, because there is no shortage of buildings turned into gallery spaces or museums. What was it about this place that you thought worked particularly well for
Uh,
photography?
for photography, several things. It's not the walls, literally. So let's start with the walls. Literally, it is the opposite of a white wall gallery. The walls are dark. A lot of the heritage of the building has been kept intact. Intact. So you have, concrete floors and wall and ceilings and exposed brickwork and so on and so forth. And so you do not feel like you're in a traditional museum or gallery. You feel like you're in something new, or not new, something different, which I think sort of subtly makes you feel a bit like I'm not expecting to see paintings here. But also the walls, so there are 3 different exhibitions on there at the moment. And the ceilings are quite low, so you get close up to the photographs. It's also not sort of that everything is put in around the walls of one room or anything. It's very not so much interactive, but all the spaces are divided up. So you really walk, you do a lot of walking, you move around the space to look at things. And you are continuously shifting from looking at one kind of work to another kind of work, to another photographer, to a different era. It feels like a more contemporary experience in terms of looking at things. It doesn't feel like your classic go to a gallery and admire the image, the paintings hung around the walls.
I
So
suppose,
there's
yeah,
that.
I suppose also, you know, we're not used to going into very large spaces like that, completely dedicated to photography. Perhaps that's also part of the difference.
Yes, definitely. I mean, even if I think certainly about places like the Photographers Gallery in London, it's a dedicated space, but it still has that heritage of a white wall gallery because most of the walls are white and the space is quite big. It's whereas the space is much more what's the word? There's a lot going on within the spaces. There are walls within walls. There are display areas within display areas, and the effect could be messy, but it isn't at all.
But
It's
you
fascinating.
were just saying there to pick you up on that because I always find that the Photographers Gallery in London now, the new one, is horrendous. I hate it. It feels claustrophobic. I spend more time sort of waiting, trying to get up and down the staircase. Then you go into small rooms, whereas the old one was wonderful with big spaces and so forth. So maybe it gives the work actually kind of allows it to breathe?
Well, two really basic words: rooms and staircases. And honestly, these are the things that make the big difference. So the rooms, so as I say, the center of the building from the ground up six floor flights is open. So you have this big atrium and there are stairs going all the way around. And of course there are lifts as well if you want to use those. But walking up and down the stairs doesn't feel is not de is designed so it doesn't feel like you're just getting from A to B because every stair every landing has got material in it. Some of the landings have got slideshows and light shows of work, so you can see more and more and more work. Um, and the rooms, as I say, they're not boxes, or the boxes have been very cleverly designed. So you never feel like you're in a box. You feel like you're continuously going on a journey to see one bit, to see the next bit. And it adds a real sense of energy. You know the way sometimes you walk into some galleries and it's just like, God, there's a huge big room here and it's full of people and I have to get we've talked about those experiences.
I know that's one of your
Yeah.
bugbears. You only want to go and see exhibitions at night when it's closed.
Exactly. But with this, there is none of that. There were quite a lot of people there, but you didn't feel like it was crowded at all, and it didn't feel empty at all. It felt like the space was designed to make the most of the work you're looking at and to make the most of the feeling of walking around the work. Another thing is quite dark. A lot of spaces are quite dark, and in a way, and the lighting's great. So you have these dark spaces with the images just really glowing out of them. And one of as I say, the three exhibitions. I have to tell you about one of the exhibitions. This is the kind of thing that if I just said, there's an exhibition called Rotterdam in Focus, and it's photographs of Rotterdam.
Yeah, I saw that. I checked out the website because I knew you were going to talk about this.
Yeah.
And what interested me was that they haven't started off with a big name show. In fact, there is no big name show at the minute.
Well, no, except we'll come back to that. But exactly, this is I was thinking when I was planning my trip, I was thinking, well, okay, I won't really bother with that one, but I just really want to see some other stuff there. I was slightly blown away by pictures of Rotterdam from what's the earliest? Well, from certainly from the 1860s up until last year. I mean, who would have thunk it? It's Rotterdam. It's not even, Paris or New York, but I mean, no shade to Rotterdam, but it's a beautifully curated exhibition. And why it works, it's full of names that I have never heard before, because they're old Dutch photographers and some new Dutch photographers and video makers and what have you. The only name I think anyone would be familiar with outside of the country is probably August Sander, there's one August Sander in it. But again, the way the images are put together, the way the photographs are laid out, the way the rooms are 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 are, are, are joined together, you really feel like you're always seeing something new and interesting, and you can look at the images from the beginning of the century with the images of the Nazi, fire carpet bombing, with pictures from the 1970s and 80s when it was being revived, with pictures of the 2000s when more things are being flattened and raised again. It doesn't sound, it's hard to make this sound as exciting as civic photography.
Well, yeah, I
Oh
mean,
God, it
but
was.
you look at as I say, I looked at the website, I looked at the three shows, and I thought, do I really want to have to make a trip to Rotterdam to see that? And I thought, absolutely not. But
Yeah.
then I think you were so excited about it. What it made me start to think was that, well, maybe with good curation in a good space, it's possible to make anything interesting.
I think it might. Really good curation in a good space. And one of the things that works about this whole museum is the curation and the I think the attitude of the curation in the variety, what have I written in, the variety of ways of showing photography. So In the Rotterdam in Focus exhibition, they have stereoscopes. You know, they have like from the like 1858 up to 1910. So you look at the stereoscopes, these little tiny little slide-like images through these machines, and it's fun. And it's the kind of thing you think, oh, kids would love this, but frankly, as an adult who's interested in pictures, it's really interesting, beautifully done, and fascinating to look at how people were trying to make images and record their town from the very beginning of recorded of photography. And at the same time, I think one of my favorite pieces was actually a video piece by Stacey Samidin, and it was made last year. And it's called what is it? I think it's just called Rotterdam Landscape, and it's probably drone, but it's black and white, and it's a video piece. It's 4 minutes long, and you just fly over the city. You know the film Wings of Desire?
Yeah, of course, they're vendors.
So it's got that kind of feel to it. And again, I found it sort of amazingly moving and romantic that you have something that feels and looks beautiful, elegiac, romantic, unusual about this city that's this modern city. And also, as I said, Rotterdam's continuously being rebuilt, and I had coffee with a friend there. She is an illustrator and a collage artist. Iris van Gelder, a very good Dutch name. Iris has lived in Rotterdam for her whole life, and we were talking about the architecture of the city. And again, because of the devastation from by the Nazis, the city sort of became an experimental site for urban planning, and post-war history has all been continual reinvention. And there's fantastic modern buildings. But Iris is pointing out that every time a new building goes up, it goes so close to an old building that it's almost like they're erasing, or you can't see the other thing. So they're continuously making new things, and you can't actually see what went before. All of which I think plays into a fascinating, set of thoughts about architecture and how you think about architecture and how you show architecture and how you commemorate architecture and how important architecture and planning and buildings are in our lives, and only becoming more important. I'm looking at my window at the moment at the skyscraper being built here in West London. It all feels very contemporary in so many ways. I thought it was great. And Rotterdam in focus. Who
Well,
knew? But it's
yeah,
great.
but it makes me think. I mean, I think there's an awful lot we can learn from that. I mean, obviously, um, it's now making Rotterdam a destination for photography. It reminds me of kind of the Guggenheim in Bilbao,
Hmm.
industrial
Hmm.
cities which are sort of creating or recreating themselves as cultural hubs
Yeah.
with
I
that
think
idea.
one of the things that the place that it reminds me of in London is actually at the moment is it's a little bit the V&A Storehouse.
Yeah.
Of course, the V&A East is about to open by the time the podcast goes out. It will have just opened. But also the building in itself is more like the Museum of London than anything else. So it's the Museum of London also being over in Docklands and has that industrial warehouse feel to it. But I was thinking, gosh, if we had something like this in maybe something like maybe the Martin Parr Foundation is like this or something, but I don't know anywhere in London that feels like this, that feels like this, where you and I would love to see an exhibition of photographs of London or Leeds or Edinburgh or anywhere that was done in a similar way with this kind of curation that really tells a story of the place and of the people and of the creative attitudes to it.
Well, it's that question of funding for photography, isn't it? And we've spoken a lot over the couple of years, I think, now that we've been doing this, about the lack of funding in the UK, about the great funding across Europe, particularly in France, and and taking it more seriously.
Well, in fact, this particular building, the photo museum, was purchased and restored with a grant of $38 million, a donation from Dream and Do Foundation, which is a Rotterdam philanthropical cultural organization, which again my friend Iris was telling me about, and I was looking up a little bit more about them. They have a very basic, beautiful but basic website, but the website lists the projects they're involved with, which is massive. It's dance, it's photography, it's sculpture, it's all kinds of things. It's a lot of things. And they are very well known because they are also supporting a lot of other cultural initiatives and museums in the city. I think, how many millionaires does London have?
Quite
And
a
what
few.
are they doing with their money exactly?
Well, I'd like to
Because,
put forward the same. How many millionaires are there in the Cotswolds? Which
well,
hate to tell you, but I think is now the new capital of the UK,
well,
as far as I can see.
excuse me, by the way, the only trouble with my beautiful 2 days in Rotterdam is I came back to London and got a cold, which I'm still snuffling around with. But honestly, you do kind of look at this and go, it's not the government, actually. It is, in fact, this is a foundation.
Okay,
Can I tell you a bit more about what I saw?
yeah, please do.
All right. Two other exhibitions. So the one that I thought they're both fascinating, but the permanent exhibition, this one. So should you be interested in going to see Rotterdam in focus? And honestly, I thought it was great. It's on until the end of May, and then they have the Dutch Gallery, the Gallery of Honor of Dutch Photography. Now, as I say, this is very Dutch, the whole thing. The work is Dutch. And if you know about Dutch photography, you will know that, like you and I have spoken about this some episodes back, there's whole traditions of photography in other parts of the world. Like when I lived in Germany for a while, I realized how many terrific German photographers there were getting work that we never heard of here. And all over the place you have this. And of course, Dutch photography has terrific names, not all of whom are very well known, but you have Erwin Olaf, who's represented here, Anton Corbijn, of course, great music photographer, Rineke Dijkstra, sorry, Rineke, but she's represented here and so on. Um, so the Dutch Photography Hall of Fame, the Gallery of Honor, has 99 pieces in it. And this is on, I think, the second floor, the first floor, and it's a very darkened space with light coming through the windows. And because it's an old warehouse, these are quite small windows, but it makes for a very dramatic space with kind of like shafts of light coming through here and there. And the works themselves, so the works in Rotterdam are on some are on corrugated iron panels, some are on wooden panels, some are on color panels. Works, everything works. But in the Dutch sort of Hall of Fame, you have these dark wood panels scattered around, each of which has only one or two works on it. And it goes back to the 1880s, right up until the 2020s. And you only have one or two pieces by each photographer, which is very interesting. So I would assume there's a temptation to put, a dozen Reineke Dijkstra's from all her different projects and, half a dozen Anton Corbijns, but they just pick the one of each one. And what this does is it really highlights the variety and the sheer number of talents that the country has produced and the commitment, I suppose, to beautiful artistic photography that the country has produced. Um, the
Well,
only thing,
I was just gonna say, Fee, it's interesting. I was just sitting here and thinking about what you were saying. We've actually had three Dutch photographers contribute to the podcast. Owen Olaf, Helen van der Meen,
mhm,
and Julie Hadrova.
mhm.
Um, so actually, I think, and of course, we think of Vivian Sassoon as well
Yes,
from a
yes.
Dutch perspective. So I wonder if the Dutch are slightly better than the Germans, the Spanish, and the Italians are actually sort of engaging with global photography in a, we're slightly more aware of the Dutch.
Possibly, I would, and if I was to, if that's the case, and if I was to suggest why that might be the case, it's because obviously the only people who speak Dutch live in the Netherlands. Whereas if you speak French or Spanish, you can speak French or Spanish all over the world. So the Dutch come to the world and speak English the way
Well,
the
they
rest of
they speak English there as well. They speak
of
English
course,
better
of
than
course,
most
of course.
English.
Of course,
Um,
although both the website, well, everything on the website, everything in the museum is of course bilingual, as you know, everything is these days. And to Vivian Sassen, yes, she's in here as well. All these people are. But so the only thing I'm going to say one small, not a criticism, but a caveat. My only caveat I think about the whole museum is that you if you go in as I did, knowing like this much about Dutch photography, you wander around and go, "This is gorgeous. This is amazing. This is really interesting." And the captions on everything are interesting, but the captions are short. So then you can go to the website and you get expanded captions. That's absolutely fine. But nonetheless, the expanded captions tell you this much of a story like that. So, for instance, one of the images that I took a photograph of is by Hans Poley. Now, Hans Poley he wasn't Jewish, but he was 18 when the Nazis invaded, and he refused to sign the allegiance to to the German invaders. And he went into hiding. And the place he went into hiding turned out to be Carrie Ten Boom's house in uh, Rotterdam, no, in Amsterdam, I think, which over the coming years sheltered many Jewish refugees. And so the story about this photographer has been made into a film as well, more than one film, I think. But the information in the museum is really short. There's a couple of paragraphs about the picture, and the picture is of a group of people on a rooftop in the sunshine, wearing suits and ties, and they're not doing anything. They're very informal. They're laughing. A couple of the women's heads are cut off because they're kind of like hanging up laundry or something, but they're not really relaxing. They're laughing by the sunshine. And the story behind it is that it turns out that these people were all in hiding in the house. And shortly after this photograph was taken, the house was raided and they were all taken away, several of them obviously to concentration camps. And you get that much information, but then of course you go to Wikipedia and you find out what was really going on. So my only, and I found this a lot through it, that if you want to know more, you have to do your research, which is, I think, no bad thing.
no,
Really
but
no bad thing.
it leads us to our constant quest for good merch.
Yeah.
Um, was there a book that accompanied this that was in two languages?
There are, in all honesty, I can't remember if there's a book. Not there isn't a book about the permanent collection that I remember. There are books about the museum, but because the permanent collection has 99 pieces in it, and it won't, and it will rotate sometimes. I think I think it would be difficult to do the definitive catalog. It's not an exhibition; it's a permanent display. Um, but the bookshop itself is great, and if you want to read, there are books, plenty of books by and about Dutch photographers in there. Um, and I have to say, it's not like not knowing this information in any way, shape, or form diminished my enjoyment of the exhibition. It's just that afterwards, for instance, Bastian Ada, Jan Bas Ada. So there's a really famous photo, you will know it. It's called I'm Too Sad to Tell You. It's a black and white photograph from 1970. It's a young man in floods of tears. I walked in and thought, oh, I know that picture. All right, fine, great picture. I wonder what the story is. It was I'm Too Sad to Tell You, 1970, Bastian Ada. So that's all I get. And then another kind of paragraph, two paragraphs about him when I go to the website. So Wikipedia tells me the whole story about how he was actually one of the more he became very successful in the US as an artist. He was a performer, a performance artist and a photographer. And this is one of his very well-known works from 1970. It was an enactment. But weird things like he was born in 1942, so he was young. He was lost at sea. he died age 33 doing an art piece and his ships, his boat sank, which I'm not, that's just, but these are all the things like I kept coming across these stories that are so fascinating. So next time I go, I will spend a lot longer than 4 hours because there's just so much to see. But you can, as I say, just wander around and go, gosh, that's beautiful. Gosh, that's interesting. Wow, that's amazing. This is really great. And also in the gallery of honor, they have light boxes, videos. They have sort of like little videos of Anton Corbijn talking about his technique and talking about his camera. They have lots of interviews with lots of the photographers. So there's a lot to go into and to find out more about. Um, it's just a lot, and it's beautiful and wonderful.
It sounds like photographic archaeology.
Photographic archaeology is a very good way of putting it. Yeah, among many other things. Um, Cool, fun, exciting photographic archaeology.
Good.
And then
And how much to get in?
€17.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Like no argument with that. A little bit more about what you can see. So again, I mentioned that the different floors and around the walkways have displays. So you can go into a little annex and you can print something. You can print from a negative. You can go into another one and see how things are enlarged and so on. You can do lots of little fun things, which presumably is particularly interesting for young people. But there's a real effort to tell the story of how photography works. And also things like there's a big video space where they're showing an interview with the head of the collections, who I'm pretty sure I saw getting into the lift, but I didn't realize at the time he was the head of the collections, or else I would have kidnapped him and asked him for an interview or a quote. But again, have you ever heard of the photographer Ed Van Eskelm?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I only know him because I've seen an exhibition of his stuff in Jeu de Paume in Paris many years ago. But they have the head of collections is talking about how Ed van Esken, because he lived a very peripatetic, is that the word, life. He was traveling all the time, very carefree. He was his archive basically was shoved on the under stairs and in the polderlands in his damp house, and the roof blew out. So basically, the archive of his photographic work before he died, or when he died in 1990, I think it was in pretty dire straits. So they launched a campaign to rescue Ed. So people could actually sponsor one piece of film, literally a negative or an image, and you could give a small amount of money and you could contribute to the building of it. And so the archive is there as well. It's just lovely. The whole kind of care for the work and everything is great.
Well, it's so interesting because I think it would be appropriate to describe him as a colourful character
Yes, he was.
who
He
lived
was a bit of a rock and roller.
yeah, kind of the Charles Bukowski of photography.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a video of him reading something. It could be Charles Bukowski. Oh, no, I can't remember what he was reading, but he's in a golf buggy, and next to him is his one of his second or third wife, I think, and one of the kids, and he's reading and she's driving, and another of the kids is running behind the golf buggy trying to catch up, and they're filming the whole thing. Like, okay, but the characters, I mean, the characters are great. It's just really, really, you learn a lot in this place. There's one other exhibition that I feel I'd like to touch on as well. And by the way, I'm going to put lots more pictures of this onto my Instagram and after the episode comes out, if people want to see a bit more about this. Because the third exhibition is it's called Awakening in Blue. It's on until June the 7th, and it's a cyanotype exhibition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Well,
I hear that tone, and I have the riposte to that tone.
yeah, that's fine. I
Okay.
mean, I just kind of feel, do I really need to see another cyanotype? And you're going to tell me that I do.
Same. I was like, okay, well, do I know cyanotypes? Not really bothered about that. I mean, yeah, whatever. Um, and so how do it wasn't what I expected. Well, some of it was what I expected because Anna Atkins is in there. Anna Atkins, the British, photographer,
Pioneer
pioneer.
of the leaf and the cyanotype.
Yeah,
The much copied on Instagram.
307 pictures of British algae are in there. And then they move on to a Dutch photographer who's been doing the same thing for recently and stuff. And they have examples of cyanotypes being used in Dutch colonial history. So documenting life in Sumatra and the Dutch East Indies and the Dutch West Indies. And then you have all the kind of modern young photographers and image makers who now are adapting this process and technique to examine post-colonial issues and environmental issues and all this kind of stuff. And I think I wrote this down here because I needed to remember it. I think at one stage, like 10 or 15 years ago, this might have been dismissed, and I think actually you and I would have dismissed it as irrelevant to photography.
Oh,
Um,
no, I wouldn't be quite so harsh.
Okay, well, I might have,
You
okay,
might
yeah,
have been, but you're
we would
tougher
have
than
been a
I
bit
am.
like, okay, fine, it's a side track, it's a side issue here. And the whole craft part of it, there are plenty of people who would have kind of gone, it's craft, it's not photography. But I really felt that in, 2026, we need to be more open-minded and more thoughtful and more inventive when we talk about photography and when we think about photography. And it can't really be reduced to a picture on a piece of paper or on a screen. It has to be more than that. It has to have some expression of a reality made by a human being using light and whatever else they can get their hands on. Question mark, exclamation mark. I don't know. But I did feel that this was a very worthwhile and beautiful. I mean, gosh, the presentation is gorgeous. It looks beautiful. The design of the exhibitions, of all the exhibitions, 10 out of 10 for the design of all the exhibitions. But I felt it kind of had a place that I didn't begrudge it, given that there's 6 floors of classic photography in there. And I sort of felt that if you went to this exhibition in some other places, you'd be going, well, what could I see instead? The mix just worked.
It seems like a very broad church,
It is. And
which
it's
is good.
really,
But I think, I mean, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I did, the whole thing of traditional processes, whether it's tin types or cyanotypes or, I can't remember now all of them, but working with egg pigments and so forth. It's a bit like the arts and crafts movement, isn't it? A kind of a response against the industrialization and these traditional processes. I do understand it as a response against AI and against
yeah.
the digitization and so forth. So no, I would never have been so dismissive. I think that it sounds that what's there is actually taking it a little bit further. And, you know, we do see so much of a leaf against a blue background that
Yes.
I think that almost kind of does a disservice to
Yes.
that
It,
area
it,
of
it,
work.
it does. It does. And I will hold my hand out up and say, I would have been dismissive at one point. I would have said, yeah, but it's not really photography. Okay, it is image making using it. Technically, it's lens-based image making thing, but it's not my thing, even though I love a picture of a blue leaf as much as anybody. So, obviously it says something about me as well. But as I say, what I felt from the whole experience of the museum is that they are very open-minded about what photography can be, can do, should do. And they're very conscientious about acknowledging, the history of the country, the history of photography, all this kind of stuff, but not in a
Sounds a bit like this.
post-traditional.
Sounds a bit like this podcast.
Well, a little bit, but they're fun. Like this podcast too.
Well,
But there's a real sense of I felt a sense of passion. I felt a sense of joy. I felt a sense of um encouragement about the whole thing.
Alfie,
And
you're just describing the podcast again.
Talking of the podcast, can I just dive
Yes.
in? You used the word disservice, and I actually have written down the word disservice here because it's just one thing I wanted to pick up on this week.
Oh,
Um, because
this is a surprise.
it is not, it is close. Um, the the last time you and I were talking, I was talking about three or four different exhibitions here in London, one of which was Jack Davison at Cobb Gallery. And then the following week, I think you and Bill were talking about things, and you started off with a little discussion about that exhibition. And
We did. And it's interesting because next week's podcast, I've got readers' letters responding to that as well. So it's definitely a very interesting conversation because people are coming quite strongly down on my side and also on Bill's side. So
so,
it's interesting.
well, I'm going to get my stick my oar in before you get to read the readers' letters because I also want to put my thing. I haven't had time to write the readers, the listeners' letters. Um, but this ties in with the Rotterdam Photo Museum. So Bill said Fiona quite liked the exhibition. I said I checked the transcript. No, I did love the exhibition, and I did say I loved the exhibition. I love all of them, and I don't recommend stuff I quite like, and I don't recommend stuff. I do recommend stuff, as you know, that I hate, but I recommend stuff that I love too. But you said your phrase was she wasn't it wasn't that she didn't feel it necessarily lived up to the hype, and this is the thing I wanted to pick up about is hype. There's such a lot of hype around these days, and thinking and talking, I talked to quite a few people ever since over the last couple of weeks about hype and how we think about photography in particular, exhibitions generally, fashion, but photography in particular. And I slightly feel like it might be a in this country thing, but I don't know enough about, how people discuss photography in the Netherlands or wherever. I feel that hype does a disservice to everything, and that if you hype an exhibition, say Jack Davison at the Cobb Gallery, then there's certainly going to be people who go, I heard it's terrific, I've got to go. You're going to hear other people who can go, I heard it's terrific, I don't believe that it can't live up to the hype. Um, and and hype means that we start making our own decisions, making our own minds up, and trusting our own understanding and doing our own research. And so where was I going with this? I think it's really important. So I try not to use it, but also I think that one of the things about going to places like this exhibition, this museum, is it's not about hype. It's not cool. It's not trendy. It's Rotterdam. It's wonderful, but don't believe the hype. Um,
Ever.
go to everything, see everything. Don't listen to what people say. Just try and go.
And listen, I
Or
can.
at least go online. Oh, sorry, one last thing, which
Oh,
is
God.
you always say, and you quite rightly say, if people can't go, look on the website. 100%. This is one of those cases where it's really worth going online, and I will send some links.
Yeah.
There's so
Well,
much good stuff to look at online around the work in the museum.
yeah, well, we've both thrown a lot of names around. So
Yeah,
all links to everything we talk about will be in the show notes, even if I've just mentioned Charles Bukowski, for example, and
yeah,
you don't know who
exactly.
he is, there'll be a link. But I think what's really important about what you're saying here, and I think it does open up a very interesting conversation. Maybe it should be a freeway between yourself, Bill, and myself at some point around this idea of hype, because the creative industries are about hype,
Yes.
because intrinsically they have to be hyped to try and get people there. Um, and I think that's a very important thing to recognize. My son-in-law is a very successful theatre producer in the West End, and hype is what he's all about
Yeah.
because they've got to get a certain amount of tickets sold for every show and so forth. And so we have to understand that. I think that what I was trying to make a point about with the Davidson was that hype is fine. Flavor of the month is fine. I have no problems with any of it. I think that what sometimes is lacking is a recognition that nothing comes from nowhere.
Um, yes, but I would say that's a slightly different. We're kind of that's talking also about the work.
Kind of, but also that if something's going to be hyped up, the chances are it's going to be based on something that's gone before. It may be informed by something, responding to something. Um, and I think that that knowledge, that experience that you gained at the Dutch Museum about something you know nothing about, that actually improved your experience. It added to your experience. And I think that if we're expecting to just go in because something's been hyped and love it,
Yes,
then the chances are we are going to be disappointed.
exactly.
We need to
We
put a bit
are.
of work in ourselves, and so
But
does the artist in explaining it.
and if we believe hype, if we listen to hype, if we go, oh, I heard nothing but fantastic things. So and so raved about this exhibition, but there's another exhibition that nobody raved about. How do you know that the other exhibition isn't better? I mean, with that particular episode, everyone was talking about Jack Davison. Sorry, Jack, loved the exhibition. It's brilliant, but very few people talked about Gordon Parks.
Mm.
Like a lot of my students, your students too, I suspect, were certainly a lot of my creative direction and fashion students were very much like, oh yes, and just people in the industry were like, yeah, 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 love that. That must great. Must go and see it. Want to go and see it. But nobody said to me, oh wow, yes, I must go and see the Gordon Parks, apart from obviously a couple of photographers. And this is, frankly, the hype makes no sense because everyone should be.
But it
The
never
hype makes no
does.
sense.
It never does. I
No,
mean,
exactly. It never does. You're right.
you and I in our careers have been totally and utterly culpable in promoting the zeitgeist, and everybody, and so we have to
Mhm.
accept
Yeah,
that in
yeah,
our previous lives in women's magazines or however you want to describe them, glosses
yeah,
or what have you. Um, and so I think what we have to do is accept that everybody has their moment in the sun
yeah,
and you know and you're the flavor of the month. The key for the great photographer is to survive that
yeah.
and to actually bring some consistency and some longevity to the work that's being produced and not it's like in any creative area, isn't it?
It
Everyone
is.
can be the top of the pops one week and next week you're delivering for Amazon.
Well, anyway, I would say never mind the hype about the photographers, but honestly, check out the museum either online or if you can go and visit. And I'd love to hear from anybody else who has been, because I do know obviously quite a few Dutch people who have been.
Yes, I know Michael Pritchard, friend of the podcast, has been because I saw
Oh,
him putting it on his Instagram. So maybe Michael would like to get in touch. I know he listens. And if people want to follow you on Instagram, which of course they should, what's the tag they need to find? It's a very appropriate one.
the art dictator.
That's
At the art
dictator, isn't it?
dictator.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
not art director, art dictator.
Thank you, Grant. You don't have to spell it out.
As always, a pleasure and a joy to catch up and look forward to catching up next month.
Terrific. Thanks a million, Grant.
As always, thank you very much for listening. And wherever you're listening to this episode, on whichever platform, it would be really kind if you could give us a like and, of course, a subscribe, just to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. And in the meantime, from Fiona and from myself, take care.